Hello and welcome to the I Am Woman project, where every week we have deep, thought-provoking and interesting conversations with thought leaders, change instigators, rule breakers and creative minds who think differently, sparking creativity and inspiration. Our special guests on our show cover a variety of topics just for you, and they share their personal stories to inspire, motivate and empower you, our listener. The I Am Woman podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.catherineplano.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favourite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. We have Melissa Collins, the voice. Melissa Collins grew up in Kendron in Brisbane, where Kendron was a bit of a daggy place to live. The daughter of a detective, questions like why, how, where, what and when usually had fascinating and sometimes gruesome answers. And this is how a storyteller was born. With a voice once described as a big warm hug, Melissa got her start in commercial radio at a time when women were usually relegated to support roles in brekkie shows. Melissa insisted on having her own programs and continued to do just that for stations right across Queensland and New South Wales. Melissa writes content with a passion for getting to the core of the subject with charm and authenticity, bringing out what is true for the client. And as a fiction writer, she can say whatever she likes, and she does. So sit back, tune in, and enjoy. Welcome to I Am Woman project, Melissa Collins. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Catherine?
I'm very good. I'm actually just trying to remember your nickname as we were having our conversation. What was it again?
Lissy Lou.
Lissy Lou, that's it. So, Melissa, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do?
I have been telling stories now pretty much my entire working life. I fell into radio when I was almost 20. So for quite some time now, over 25 years, I've been a broadcaster. Lots of things I've done in my radio career include writing editorials and working in talk radio. So I had to do lots of research and writing of stories there. As a broadcaster, presenting programs, music and current affairs, interviewing lots and lots and lots of people. I've also done copywriting. And then later, most recently, I decided that I didn't want to work for anyone else anymore. I just wanted to work for me. So I started voiceovers from home and writing from home, and I do freelance writing. I've just started doing interviews and podcasts, so that's all very fun. And getting to work my own hours and doing my own thing is pretty cool. It means I've kind of lost the constraints of having to follow everybody else's rules. I'm more and more following just mine, and that feels pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that when you shared with me exactly what you did, some of your voiceovers were so, I was like, oh my gosh, I know that.
I know. People always say to me, is there anything that you've done? Excuse me. People always say to me, is there anything that you've done that I might know? And then I say to them, are you sure you want to know? Because as soon as you hear it, you're just going to get sick of it. You're going to hear me everywhere. And they go, no, I do. And then, like weeks later, they go, oh my God, I hear you all the time. I'm so sick of hearing your voice. So yeah, there's all kinds of things I do. You hear me on.
I was having a good giggle because when you said to me, oh, you'll see. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do know these. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
So Melissa, that must have been a big jump for you going from working for somebody else and then diving into your own projects. How did that, the whole transition piece, how was that for you?
It was really scary actually, because I'd always had the support of a dynamic and adrenalized working environment where, there was lots of people and everything was always happening and time was potent. You had to get everything right to the second. It was quite pressurized environment to just this flowing, quiet, easy paced lifestyle. It took some time to get used to. I kind of think I was addicted to the adrenaline, actually. I think I was addicted to the rush of being in that kind of environment. So it was quite a shift. And when people have this image of when you work from home that you spend most of your time in your pajamas, and and I did. It was kind of like, what's the point? I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to do anything. I could just lie here. And I used to have these endless cups of tea with my friends and procrastinate. I kind of went completely the other way and then freaked out about it. So I did find my level eventually. Now it's pretty good. I can happily say I usually get out of my pajamas before 10. And and I do have quite rigid and strict, expectations of what I'm supposed to do. I don't always follow them, but they're there.
Yeah, I think you have to have a really strong plan, don't you, and stick to them
Yeah.
as to what time you're going to start, and getting dressed, getting yourself in that frame of mind to actually, create, especially with you, because you do a lot of writing, voiceovers, broadcasting. So there's a lot of creation that's involved. So you really need to be in that space to be able to do that.
Yeah, I have to. And but there's been times, like it's been 10 years now since I started working for myself, but there's been times when that my personal life, excuse me. So there's been times in my personal life where things have been quite catastrophic. There's been some real pain, which then also affects my ability in this creative fields to want to get out there and promote myself and do the work as, of course I always try to do the work as well as I could, but when you're down or when you're not on top of your game, it's really hard to stay there when there's all this other stuff going on. And I really struggled with that for a while.
And I guess, Melissa, for our listeners, I just wanted to sort of explain as well, bless you, as to why also I wanted to get you on the show, because when we spoke and you shared your story with your children and your separation and where your children are was quite incredible, because it's a little bit different. And I thought that would be really good for you to share your story, because I really think that there's lots of other people out there with the same or similar circumstances.
Yes, I quite publicly. I mean, most people would just sort of go about their business doing it quietly. But I think what happened with me was that it had been 5 years. My ex-husband and I separated. And it wasn't until around, like, I'd been thinking about it for quite some time. I mean, it wasn't a spur of the moment, spontaneous thing. There were people's lives and were going to change dramatically by making decisions like that. And it wasn't until almost crunch time when I decided that to have the conversations with him about leaving and ending the marriage, when he pretty much begged me not to take the kids with me, and it didn't occur to me that I wouldn't. And once he'd said that, and I realized that he was actually going to be the one that was in a better position to take care of them, and in that regard, and provide the stability. It wasn't that I was falling off the planet or anything. I was still their loving mother. It's just that of the two of us, he had certain things that they needed. He was better at them at that time. And I think in hindsight, if I'd known how hard it was going to be, I probably would have done something much more different. It was very difficult. It was very painful. So in excuse me, in June of this year, beginning of June, I went down and there was a call for people in my situation, for mothers who leave their kids with the other parent, or mothers who leave generally. Was the name of the show. SBS Insight ran a program on that, and they asked for participants to come on the show and talk about it. And I thought, I'll want to, because, I'm articulate. It's been a hard road. And I think that other women who are in that situation might find something heartwarming, and see themselves in my discomfort and my pain with it, and maybe feel better about themselves Most people I've ever spoken to during this time, 80. Well, the stats are that 81% of cases, children stay with the mother. So I'm in the minority, and there's been such backlash against me for doing what I did. It's not like I left them in the side of the road. I actually left them with their loving father, who is quite capable of caring for them, and I see them quite regularly. I do the every second weekend. I have them extended periods of time in the holidays. Like, for example, just next week, their dad's going away and I'm going to go and stay with them while he's away, in their home so that they can go to school and do their normal life. We have a pretty good relationship, my ex and I. It's not always ideal, obviously, but we try really hard for them, and we're just getting on about the business of raising kids separately, but together. But it's been really hard. But going on that program was just, oh my God, I had no idea. I think an entire segment should be done on the on the disastrous and horrible effects of social media in the negative. I really copped it for being on that show. I was viciously attacked, and there was lots of people who were really beautiful too and very supportive. But, oh, my God, that was awful.
But Melissa, you're going to get that. You're going to get people against you, and you're going to get people that are supportive and say how courageous of you, because in the reality from our discussions, I mean, that would have been a really hard choice to make and how often have an individual found themselves in this situation where they're not happy in their relationship, and there was another lady that I had spoken to some time ago. She wasn't happy in her relationship, and to the point where she actually couldn't leave her children. And the same thing had happened to her. Her husband said to her, you can't take the children, and kind of threatened that if you leave, but the children stay with me. And she tried to take her own life until she realized that she had to leave. And, and her children took them a long time to get over the fact that, and understand the reality, because it's not like she had a choice. And it's a hard decision to make. It's like, do I sacrifice me for my children and my happiness, or do I, and it is a tough situation to be in.
You're damned no matter what you do. And I think that, I think in the end it was the right decision. Absolutely. They're happier. My ex-husband said to me about 2 years after that time, he said to me, I was just so, I was so cut up about it, and so I missed them so badly, the everydayness of them, the get up, find mum, have a hug, brush your teeth, where's your socks, I missed all that. I don't do that anymore. And my ex-husband said to me, you should see us. We're really good. We're a good team, and we're doing it, and not everything's perfect, but we're okay. We're okay now. You did a brave and scary thing, and I didn't like it at the time, but we're okay now. Would you please let yourself off the hook? Would you please just have a life for yourself now? And I remember thinking at the time, wow, that's really kind. It's a really beautiful thing to say. And it kind of sunk into my bones a bit at the time, thinking, it's okay. I didn't do anything wrong. I just made a really painful decision at a time when some painful decisions had to be made. And I don't know. I understand why women stay. I understand why women leave. I understand why men do too. And I think too that, my sons will have a healthier respect and a healthier, more balanced expectation of the role of fathers in the raising of children. They will not see men as, buffoons and foolish people that kind of every now and then help out. I don't know if you've seen how some mothers, they kind of corner the market on mothering. They think that they're the best there is and that they're better than the father. It's just not the case if you step out of the way and let them parent too. Yeah. Where they make jokes about them and belittle them. And, and I've seen it, frequently, where men are belittled by other women or whatever for their in capabilities, when if they're just given half a chance, they can parent just as well. They bring other things that mothers don't. And in letting go of the reins of owning motherhood or parenting and cornering the market on that, women also have a chance to shine in other ways if they share the load. I'm not saying this is all about men and women. It's just, in my case, it's about me and their father. But I think other women make it really hard for themselves.
I think it's all about equality, and more now. You're
Yeah.
starting to hear the conversations where women are coming back into their environment. There's a couple of my clients who had children have come back into their environment, and it's their husband staying at home with their children
Yep.
because they earn more money, and they stayed with their children or the child the first 6 months, and then back at work to do their thing, and they kind of swapped it over so that, and I think that's a great thing. It's not common, but it's starting to come out, out in conversations a lot more than it used to, maybe 5, even 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think though what was bothering me, and I'm pretty good with it now, because after when you go on a national television program and declare something scary that a lot of people have a strong opinion about, and then I had to deal with the fallout with social media, and I'm okay with it now. I understand it now. I understand it a whole lot better now than I did when I was right in the middle of it. I just wasn't prepared, and I don't think you can be prepared. But I think that having done that, it sort of loosened up a whole bunch of things about the way I move through the world. And it doesn't bother me anymore when people say things like, oh, I could never do that, which implies, meaning I couldn't leave my children, which implies, well, what kind of woman does,
Yeah.
Oh, my children are my life, which implies that my children are not a big part of mine. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And so there's all this backhanded stuff, I even know friends of mine, I went to school with them, who are building on additions to their homes for their 20-somethings so that they can stay for as long as they want. They can't imagine ever not being with their children. I think, oh, that's not really healthy either. But I don't know.
I mean, you know what? I always say there is no right and wrong. And I think, and I even say this to my son, I was never given a book on how to be a parent.
No.
And, life, it's what you create, and you just don't know sometimes how it's going to all plan out, and I think, even with us, I think that everything happens for a reason, and and there's always, and sometimes we don't see it till we look back and go, oh, I get why this happened, and I think with you also, what it allowed you to do is really deep dive into what you've created for yourself. And I'm sure you see yourself now and say to yourself, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't do what I did. And I wouldn't
Absolutely
be creating this amazing business of mine, sharing other people's stories to inspire other people and change the world with your stories.
Absolutely not. One of the first things I did when the marriage ended and I picked myself up off the floor and had to move around, make more money and have time for myself. I had lots of that all of a sudden after years and years of not. And I started writing novels. And it was fantastic. That part was awesome, because I had the emotional space and the time and the quiet in order to do that. And it's not that I'm not suggesting that all women should not be mothers and leave their kids or anything like that. It's just that the way I had been living. When you're unhappy, I was unhappily married. And there's you sort of full up when you're unhappily married. You're kind of all the time juggling your emotional life, trying to find some peace. I remember, the kids were unsettled and I don't know. Unhappily married couples do not make the best parents, And once we'd separated and I had more time and the kids would settle down, everything kind of found a whole new level where I was able to do more with my life than I had been when I was unhappy, and they were able to relax into different forms of behavior and enjoying times with their dad in ways they hadn't before, because I was always there and their dad was always doing something else. So, creating a business, building a business, creative outlets, writing, and then writing some more was just fantastic.
So, Melissa, with the benefits of hindsight, what would you have done differently in your life or career?
I would have trusted myself more. I would have, in that program, actually, Crystal Kinsella, she was one of the other women on the program, on the SBS program. She said at the end, I'm backing myself now. I don't want to keep talking about this. I believe in what I'm doing and I'm going to back myself 100%. And I remember hearing that thinking, wow, that's such a cool thing to say. That's such an empowered place to be. And I wished when, years ago that I had that insight, where I go, right, it stops now. This judgment of myself, this harsh treatment of myself. Not everybody else was doing it. A few people, but not many, not the whole world. Not like I was doing it to myself. If I'd backed myself and believed in myself and not been so hard on myself,
But I think that, there's so much in the journey, the process in itself and the learnings. Yeah. I think that, you've come to that now, but have a look at where you were before to where you are now. And without that experience, you wouldn't be who you are today. I always look
Absolutely.
at that. I always look at that. Everyone has a story, and when we look back at them, I embrace them. I'm so grateful for those experiences because I would not be the woman I am today. As much as I can't connect to that person I was once upon a time, I'm so grateful, and I remember her. I will always remember her, and she is an aspect of who I am.
Yeah,
not who I am today.
I think about that unhappy woman I was sitting on the farm in Warwick where I was making those tough decisions about leaving, and I think about the woman that I was, and I think that woman was extraordinary. I think that in her fear and in her discomfort, she forged something. She became me. That's where I started. This was back then, and that angst and the sadness and the grief. And I think that woman was pretty amazing. You never see it at the time, but when you're in a hellacious place, looking back, that woman was pretty amazing. Look what she did. Look what she did for me to have this life. And that was very, very gutsy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's very powerful to be able to see that. It's amazing. So, Melissa, what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
The best piece of advice has been all from my father. Oh, you're going to ask me about the gold nuggets, aren't you? But it's it's the same thing. Best piece of advice. Let me think. Thank God someone will edit this out. The best piece of advice. The best piece of advice would be that I should always be who I really am, and that's good enough at any one time. For example, if today I'm feeling down and I'm not as creative as I would be, say, if I was feeling really good, but it's the best I can be, and that's all I am, and that's okay, and it's got to be all right. Perfect. And I'm okay with that.
That's perfect. Just perfect. So what advice would you give your younger self now?
Slow down. Enjoy the ride. It's a hellacious, wonderful, extraordinary ride. And in all the deep, dark, awful places, that's where the pearls are. That's where anyone can be lovely when things are going well. It's who you really are when things aren't going so great. That's when you find out where your strengths are and what kind of amazing person you are.
Yeah, no, so true. So very true. So as you're speaking to me, I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's that would be a great quote in itself, what you just said then. So I just think that should be your quote for sure. So do you worry much? Does anything sort of keep you up at night, or do you, being so creative, do you sit there in bed thinking of things that you can write about or anything like that?
Sometimes I write entire books, notes, and it comes to me in a dream, and then I just grab a notebook and I start writing, or things that I worry about in the night. It's always about the kids, I think any mother does that. Yeah. Are they okay? Are they going to be okay? How's he traveling?
Oh, that's amazing. So what kind of books do you write? You obviously do a lot of writing.
Women's fiction. Yeah, women's fiction. And I started writing some erotica stuff too a while ago. That was for a little Catholic girl. Oh my God. That was fun. But I haven't really gone back to that. It's mostly women's fiction. And that means I really despise that term chick lit. It's so.
What is it? Sorry?
Chick lit?
Oh, right.
It's such a disempowering, or hen lit. There's another genre called hen lit, which is just awful. That means women over 40. fiction for women over 40. They have nothing that describes men's work like that,
Yeah.
But it's women's fiction. It's storytelling for women. It's like the hero's journey for women. I just love, it's like getting back to what we've been talking about, finding out who you are in the messy mix of life and what you do with that. And I'm a sucker for happy endings. I just love them. So I write happy endings. I don't care if people don't like that. I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure other people will like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. And there's nothing wrong with writing, getting in touch with your root chakra, I like to call it. And there's nothing wrong with, have a look at Shades of Grey, She did that herself. She really got, into that. She connected with that part of herself and write a massive, fantasy about it all. I think, why not? If you can, imagine it and write about it in such a way that it will connect with, other people, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that writing, there's no right and wrong. It's what you feel. No. I mean, for me, it's like I like to write depending what's coming through at the time. Not saying that I channel stuff, but I kind of do channel stuff. It really depends on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis. I get ideas coming through, write them down, and and I kind of what I do every once a week. I actually sit down my Sundays and I write. And I've got all these ideas, so it just flows through. But they come through, and I think you just got to whatever comes to you is what you need to write.
Yeah, I think that I'll probably be doing more over the next little while. I've had all these, when you work, this is one of the downsides, if there's a downside of working for yourself, is that, I was telling my husband about this the other day, about how if my computer goes bung, I don't have a technical department that I can just send it to and get a replacement. I actually have to fix it myself. If I need to take care of my accounting, most of that, I'm accountant, but most of that, the actual package, the cloud-based package, I've got to fix that. And, if my car breaks down, I've got to take care of all of it because I'm in my business for myself. I can't just farm these things off. But I've had a lot of that technical, I don't know, for some reason lately there's been all this drudgery to deal with. But once it's coming out the other side of it now. So that's good. Technical issues and tidying up issues and end of financial year issues and things like that. And I think also that's on the back of going on that program, doing that SBS thing. I think again, that woman I was in the lead up to that is given birth to this woman now. I'm re-energized, refocused. It was like a massive, I don't know, maybe I was just blocking a lot of things. There's a lot of sadness and grief that doing something big like that, just, let it all go. Yeah. And so I'm freer again to be braver or more adventurous or more playful while I'm tidying up all my bookwork. But no, it really freed up some stuff. I had such shame and I was tired of it and I needed to let it go, and it's gone. Good. And I feel so free to have done that. And so, now when people talk about stuff, it doesn't bother me so much. It's gone. I'm not triggered.
Yeah.
That's such relief. I can't begin to tell you. It's wonderful.
And that's when you truly know you've let go, is when and you've got to forgive yourself. I think that's the biggest part. And when you don't get triggered, then you know it's gone. It's when you still get triggered to other people's comments or I would never do that, whatever that may be, then you know you've still got stuff to work through. But imagine what you are going to create now that you have this sense of freedom. There is no obstacles. There's just going to be flow.
I know.
It's just, I can't wait to see what's coming out.
I know. It's really exciting time. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's exciting. And I've got a lot of support and a lot of really cool friends and loving family. So I'm blessed.
Very blessed. Very blessed. So, Melissa, if you had to pick one word that best describes your personal brand, what would be that one word?
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Can I ask why you picked authenticity? Well,
I try really hard to be that. That's, in voiceovers, which it's all about advertising, but I have a specific style. Anything I write for clients in commercial copy is about, I say to them, I have a voice. It's a strong voice. I write like this. Here's some examples. I write honestly. If you don't like it or you can't go there with me, then that's okay, because I have other clients who can and who do. And I don't, it's challenging. Sometimes it's challenging to be that kind of real, and that's okay. they don't have to. But the ones that do just love it because it's freeing. So I try to bring that into whatever I do. I don't always get there, but it's a great ideal.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying. When you're saying that, I've had that experience with you when you really get to the guts of things.
That's
You
right.
really get down to the core of things, and I see why you're saying authenticity, because it does very much resonate with who you are. Absolutely. So, Melissa, as we do with every show, before we wrap up, we always leave our listeners with 3 golden nuggets. So what would be the 3 golden nuggets that you would like to leave our listeners? I can't talk today. I'm stuttering.
Well, you're doing very well, actually. Okay, the 3 gold nuggets would be, these are things I tell my kids, and that is be kind before everything else. Everything. Kindness first. Whatever you need to do next is fine, but so long as you're kind first. The second one would be always, even when there's violent opposition, you have to do what you think is right for yourself first. Because when you take care of yourself first and you do that, then everything else flows from there as well. And the last one is my dad's advice, and that is that you should never, ever, 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 ever give up, ever. Especially on a dream, and especially when you're right, never give up. So there you go.
Wow. So yeah, I can see how that plays out with you, because obviously you've just shared a part of your life, and you can see how you really do push through and never give up. So that's definitely come through very strong. Do you ever, I have to ask you this question, when you're saying never ever give up, obviously that's, do you ever have those moments where you think, I just can't continue, and you start becoming doubtful, because we all go through that. And what is your trick to go through that big brick or that big wall that's right in front of you when you either because you're talking about procrastination before as well.
Yeah.
What do you do to get through that?
I just try and soften the edges of any hard place. For example, if I really hate bookwork. Like if I could find someone else to do it and never ever look at any more accounting packages for the rest of my life, I'd be very happy. So I have actually over time just let it go for months and gotten into trouble and had to go back and fix it all up and so what I do is I hear the words that I speak to myself, oh my God, I hate bookwork. Well, that's not really going to help, is it? So I just sort of go, yeah, in this moment, it doesn't feel so great. All right, well, I really need to do it. Yeah, I don't feel like doing it. How about I do it tomorrow? All right, I need to have this much done. And so I just, it's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. Yeah. So you just break it down. Yeah. I have this habit of going hell for leather at certain things. Like one of my other things that I really am not very good at is generating new business by cold calling. Oh, really, really don't like that bit. So what I have done in the past is I'll make phone calls all day and have this big list of people that I have to follow up, and then I don't do it, or I muck around with it and I don't quite, there's always this. So I try to just soften it. Instead of making 20 calls, I go, I'll just make 3. I can make 3 calls. Yeah. I'll just make 3. So just break it down into little manageable bits. And I have personal little hissy fits while I do it. Like I'll lie on the floor, I'll make tea, I'll phone a friend. I let myself play these little games of procrastination, but then I just gently bring myself back, because otherwise if I engage with my inner rebel, nothing gets done. I'll just stamp my feet and don't do anything. If I start, you must, and that's not going to work. So I have to just break it down and do little bits. And then I have the sense of achievement, and nothing builds on, feeling successful like success. So, 3 phone calls, I go, yeah, that's fantastic, as opposed to none.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Breaking it down is a great way to push through procrastination. So, Melissa, how do our listeners find you?
I am I've got my website is melissacommunications.com. I have email, Skype, Twitter. I am on Instagram. I'm not very good at the Instagram thing, but I'm working on it.
That's okay. So everyone can find you on all that information on your website. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome. And thank you for sharing your stories. I'm sure our listeners will connect with your story, and especially those that are actually going through that at the moment or have been going through that. I think they will love to hear what you had to say tonight. So thank you so very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, really. I think one of the great gifts of painful times is that you kind of pave the way for other people.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Okay, have a great night.
Okay.
That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, as it is my mission to reach out and inspire as many individuals like you. And one of the best ways to help us achieve this goal is by giving us a good review on iTunes. It's easy and it only takes about 10 seconds. If you have any questions or special guests that you would like to hear from, please send us an email to support@catherineplano.com.au and we will get right back to you. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook @Catherine Plano. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next week, please take care.